which begins right on the top line. But before we do that, let's just look back at yesterday's new Gemara that we did new yesterday. We were talking about Rav Adar bar Ava, very interesting stories about Rav Adar bar Ava, and the Gemara talked also about they wanted to know what were his good deeds that he did. So the story about Rav Adar bar Ava, we had two powerful stories of Rav and Shmuel used to go around a certain wall that was dilapidated and they were nervous it could fall down. I mean, not really say you're not allowed to walk next to it. But when Rav Adar bar Ava came, Rav said, nah, now we could walk we could take the shortcut. We could walk the straight way. We don't have to go around that because Rav Adar bar Ava is here. And we got all the merit that we need. We don't have anything to worry about. We got him protecting us, and so they took advantage. He was visiting, and they just walked with him there. They probably didn't tell him that we're relying on your merits. But they just automatically relied on his merits, and they walked there and weren't afraid. They had nothing to worry about. The next Gemara mentions a similar story where Rav Huna had wine. The wine was stuck inside this house that was dilapidated, and they wanted to take the wine out. However, it was too dangerous. But then Rav Adar bar Ava came, so Rav Huna brought him into this, started talking to him and learning. And while they were discussing a Torah topic, he brought him there, and he went inside and brought out his wine. And right when they left, all of a sudden the house fell down. And so Rav Adar bar Ava quickly realized, aha, so this was a whole trick you did. And you're taking advantage of my merits. And Rav Adar bar Ava was a little upset. He was ikbid. He had a kapeda. He had a claim. He had a sort of like a negative feeling. Was took offense, and the Gemara explains because it says you're not allowed to stand in a place that's a sakana and say, "Oh, they're gonna make for me a miracle." You can't rely on such a thing. But maybe they're not going to make and even if they do make a miracle for you, they're going to erase it from your merits, so you lose your merits. And those are things you sort of want to keep always to have when you need them. Might be more serious. Don't use them up to go get some wine when you might need those merits for a much more important matter. Gan Eden. And then Rav Chanan had a pasuk that Yaakov was nervous because he might have used up his merits, and he felt that maybe even though Hashem had promised him that he would protect him, but he was still nervous that maybe his merits had been used up and there was no more, the protection wouldn't be there anymore. Then the Gemara said, so what was this unique merits of Rav Adar bar Ava? What did he do that he got all these merits? So the Gemara says, what?
The students asked him.
Well, the Gemara asks, what were the merits? So the Gemara says this is something that similar to what the students asked Reb Zera, and some say Rav Adar bar Ava, that how did you merit such longevity? And on this, he answered them. So based on this, they're understanding that this is the answer to why he had all these merits. In other words, the fact that he had longevity, they're assuming is the same reason. Right. And so he told them so he said that there were certain things that he was very careful all his life. And what were they? So he never showed anger in his house, which is quite an impressive thing. And the way it's understood is if he didn't show anger in his house, kal v'chomer, he didn't show it outside of his house. And some people would even question that, like maybe you're supposed to show a little anger in your house. You have to show certain uh, uh, element of that you're in charge and that the household should listen, cause them to have fear and awe from you. Yira, ish imay v'aviv tiro. A person is supposed to fear his parents. But Ravada Barava, he had a path where he never used anger to be a method, I guess, to cause his family to have fear for him, to cause his children to have fear before him. Maybe they naturally had a Moira for their parents, but he did not get angry. He didn't show anger in his house. Another thing he never did was he never took a step before someone he didn't walk in front of people who were greater than him. And there are situations you're really allowed to. If you're walking together with someone who's a teacher, you're allowed to take like a little, like the first step of walk a little in front of him. But
It's a missing blueberry on the floor.
to some extent,
Walking.
or maybe it's a little behind
Oh.
him. I'm sorry. Someone say something? Let me mute everyone. But anyway, he was careful to never walked one step ahead of of anyone greater than him. And it says the truth is I have to look it up exactly. There is a discussion if you're accompanying your teacher, what exactly it could be that you're allowed to walk slightly behind him, I guess. I have to look it up there in Yeridea. But he was careful and he extra careful in that. In addition, it says he never thought Torah in the dirty alleys. And this goes in connection with the next statement that he never walked Dalet Amis without Torah, without tefillin. So for him, it was very hard to not think Divrei Torah when he walked in these dirty alleys. And then it says, V'lo yashanti b'veis hamedrash, right? He didn't sleep, never went to sleep, not a permanent sleep, not a temporary sleep. And he never rejoiced the stumbling of his acquaintances or his friends. And that's also a very impressive thing. A lot of times people, they like to feel good by making someone else, that guy only made this amount of money. I made that amount of money on this business, or that guy, you sort of like feel good that your friend stumbles. Like now people think that it makes them look better, and he got him more embarrassed. He did something. So people like that. It's common for people to sort of enjoy someone else's failure because it makes the person feel good about even my failures. I know we're as bad as his. I'm actually pretty good on this. But Ravada Barava didn't never rejoiced in someone else's stumbling. And he never called he never used a nickname, which is also a very interesting thing that it's brought down in Gemara, different places. Machana Shem Chavera, it's considered a terrible thing that you give you use a nickname for someone. It's considered wrong. I think it even says that it's a person doesn't even get a portion in the world to come. And then the Gemara just concludes that Amri Law, some say it's Chosai, that if they add like some type of name to his family, that also a negative name, he would never mention, he never used that name. So Yeah. Yes, Moshe.
I want to just ask you something. Shimshon, didn't he lose his merit when he fell to Delilah? But and then when he gave the secret to Delilah, and he ended up, weakening, and he lost his eyesight. They blinded him and so forth. But then he regained all his merit at the end when he ended up killing the Philistines again. And his own life was lost in the process of that. Didn't he regain his merit again after that?
Well, when he broke down the walls,
The
the
temples
beams, the
that
pillars.
where he and then he lost his own life in the process. He regained
Right.
his merit again
So
after that.
merit is a different. I don't know if it talks about merit. It talks about he regained his strength.
I know he got his
Right.
koach back, but I mean, in the process of that, though, he by killing the Philistines again and regaining
Why are
his,
we asking this? What are you thinking? What is
because
that
I'm
connected?
trying to establish here, that he lost his merits at that point, but
Mhm.
it appears that he regained them again when he lost his life, and he gave his
Uh-huh.
life up.
Right.
That's,
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if it says again. I don't have the story in front of me. I don't have the book of
I
Shoftim in
mean, as we're listening to
front of me.
About Rav
But
Huna, I'm trying to, I'm seeing a comparison. I'm seeing some kind
uh
of an analogy between the two situations.
uh-huh. Yeah,
As
I
we're
don't know about
as we're
that.
discussing
Again,
this a little.
I don't have the sukkim in front of me, but I don't know. I don't know if there's really a connection. Okay, so then that the Gemara says that Rapram Bar Papa, Rava told Rapram Bar Papa that tell me about Rav Huna, something that Rav Huna did. So in other words, until now we're talking about Ravada Barava. By the way, Ravada Barava was it says that when Rebbe Kiva passed away, V'zarach Hashemesh uva Hashemesh, it says. Rebbe Kiva passed away, and immediately Rebbe was born. And so the sun set, the sun rose. Rebbe Kiva died, Rebbe was born. It means Rebbe sort of took over filled the boots, the shoes of Rebbe Akiva. Rebbe Akiva passed away, Ravada Barava was born. When Rebbe passed away, Ravada Barava was born. Of course, there's a discussion as well. Taisus over here mentions that there's different Ravada, but there is a few Ravada Baravas. But ultimately, Ravada Barava was a huge, huge holy person taking over from Rebbe. I mean, you can imagine how great he must have been if he was taking over from Rebbe. Rebbe took over from Rebbe Akiva. These people are obviously in the same league if they're being considered to be taking over, filling the shoes of the previous siding. They were born on the day that the other passed away. So this is Ravada Barava. Now the Gemara jumps to Rav Huna. And Rava asked Rafram Bar Papa, tell me something about Rav Huna. Huna did some of his good deeds. So Rafram Bar Papa, he told Rava, he said, I don't remember from his youth, but Bisivuse, I do remember when he was older that any day that there was clouds, they would carry him out on this golden chair, and he would look around the city and inspect the city, and whenever there was any wall that was found to be weak, falling apart, he would make sure that they demolished it. Literally, it means he demolished it, but it seems to be. I mean, it's not. It's not specifically saying he. It's just the way it would, have a sosarle. He would have it demolished, which could mean, have someone else demolish it. The efsher lamara banela, and if it was possible for the owner, so then he would have him build it. And if not, then it says Rav Huna himself would build it from his own midi day, from his own money. And every Friday afternoon, it says Male Shabbata. Every Friday, Hanya, the afternoon of Friday, he would send this shliach, an agent, emissary to the store, to the shuk, to um, to buy out any of the remaining yerek, any remaining vegetables, and then he would buy them, and so anything that remained, he would buy them and throw it into the river. The Gemara discusses what exactly, why doesn't he give it to the poor? Because if he gives it to the poor, they're going to rely on it, and there's going to be some weeks that there isn't going to be. They're not going to have it, and then they're going to be stuck without having this food for Shabbos. So he didn't want to cause such uh, an outcome in the end. And then it says he should have given it to the animals. He held that you're not allowed to give proper food to the animals, basically some type of a baltashchis law, like if it's edible for humans, you're not allowed to, you wouldn't be allowed to give it to animals. And Rashi says it's called bizoy oichlin, it's called disgracing food. And it looks like that you're not appreciating Hashem's gift that he gave you. So that would be one reason. And then Rashi gives another reason, that the Torah is concerned about the money of the Yidden, and therefore it would be wrong for him to feed it to animals. This would be going against Hashem's concern for humans, for Yidden, and instead he would throw it in the river, and that would ultimately get to a human. Maybe someone would people down, maybe in the river flows, and someone in the lower part of the river would be able to get it. The Gemara says that why did he buy it in the first place? Maybe just leave it with the what was he doing buying it? The Gemara says because he wanted that if they get leftovers every week, what's going to happen is they're going to start buying less and less. Now, when you buy less and less, what ends up happening is someone is going to end up without having what they need. So therefore, he wanted them to continue bringing the same amount every week. And so what he would do is buy it off them so that they never would consider buying less and getting less. And then ultimately, what he did was he saved people from not, running from that they wouldn't run out of these vegetables. Now, then it says when he had medicine, he would also make it available for people. Obviously, he was a wealthy man, but even wealthy people don't go above and beyond like this always. Some do, but he was unique, and he would if he had this medicine, he would be mole kuza mine. He would fill a jug with it, and he would hang it from his door frame. Whoever wants to come could just come, and also, and some say that he knew the ways of a certain shindalit, a certain demon who would attack, hurt people that didn't wash their hands. So he would have a jug of water that was hanging, and he said, whoever needs to wash his hands can come here, and they shouldn't be subject to having a sakana, a danger, by not washing their hands and having this shindala, this demon, which gives the name here, Shivs, whatever, that shouldn't be damaged by this demon. And then it says when he would eat bread, he would open the door and say, Pelach ma'anya. He would say what we say in Pesach. He would say, "This is anyone call the Yitzchok Yesei v'Yivkol whoever wants, whoever's need, could come and Lacy Valechol come and eat. And he made a big announcement. Now, when Rava heard this, Rava said, "Well, I could do all of those things except for this last one because there's too many bnei chela." And what does bnei chela mean? Or bnei mechuza? There's bnei chela de mechuza. The Rashi seems to have a different girsa. Nefishi bnei mechuza. According to Rashi's girsa, there are too many poor people here. They'll all come. I won't have any food for myself. If I invite them to come and eat, there'll be zero left for me. So Rava says I wouldn't be able to do that. The according to the girsa that we have in the Gemara, it says Nefishi b'nei chela de mechuza means the troops are too many, and they would come, and too many soldiers that are stationed here, and if he would open his door, there would be nothing left for him. So it either refers to the poor or refers to the soldiers. Okay, well, that's basically yes, that's the Gemara that we learned yesterday. And it's a very powerful idea of the relying on miracles that we see, that they sort of relied on Rav Adar bar Ava, on his miracles. It was also interesting that the Gemara says that he held that a person is not allowed to stand in a place of sakana. Wouldn't we think that that's obvious? It's a little surprising to me. You would think that that's a mitzvah. You always have to be careful. What does it mean? He held like Rabbi Yanai, right? That was an interesting line that it said over there in the beginning of this review that we just did. That said, Rav Adar bar Ava was upset that they relied on him for this miracle, getting the wine, and the reason is because he held like Rabbi Yanai. Isn't it a pasuk? Isn't there a pasuk that says you have to be very careful of your for your soul, for your life? You don't do something that's dangerous. You would think it would be included in the typical law of being protecting oneself from danger. So seemingly there is maybe a heter over here, and that is that when someone is a tzaddik, when someone is on a tzaddik gomor, a very high level tzaddik, a very high level righteous person, they are beyond the scope of teva, of nature. And this is brought down that like they don't fall into the regular category. Regular people fall into a category that they have to be always extra careful. But people that are on the level of tzaddik gomor, they're totally not under the realm of nature. Of course, we have great miracles happening for us all the time, but we are in the erech, we're in the league of nature. We have miracles happen, but we're in a general sense, we're part of the worldly situations, experience. We're part of the worldly experience, which includes the natural way things work. Tzaddikim gemurim, people that are on a very high level, they are in a league of their own. They're not in the worldly experience. They're not part of this worldly experience, and therefore they maybe would have a permit to rely on miracles, because for them that's not like the going against the nature. There is no nature for them. They're not in this. They're not part of this worldly experience, and the Gemara has to find some opinion that says no, but you really shouldn't do it, and that's Rabbi Yana. Maybe that's just a thought that maybe that's where the Gemara is coming up with Rabbi Yana, that in truth, Rav Adar bar Ava maybe doesn't have to rely at all on these type of things. Doesn't have to. Maybe he could rely on miracles all the time. But Rabbi Yana holds that no, even such a tzaddik gomor shouldn't do it. It's there are stories about, I don't know if you've ever heard of these stories, but stories about like there was a uh, the tzaddik wanted to, or the community wanted to say Kiddush Levana, and a Kabbalist comes with his handkerchief and he waves. The clouds are all covering the moon, and you can't do the Kiddush Levana, but some great Kabbalist comes and he waves his handkerchief, and all of a sudden the the clouds move away, and the whole community can then say Kiddush Levana. So it's like, is this the appropriate thing to do? Is it appropriate to sort of like make miracles like that? And maybe this, could be like, I mean, this is not called a sakana, so maybe it doesn't really fall into this. It doesn't really fit exactly with this Gemara here, but the concept of not being subject to the regular laws of nature and the world, of being at least within that realm, you sort of see from these type of you see that there were tzaddikim that would sort of like uh, do miracles left and right without even blinking. So that's anyway. This is seems to be a topic of discussion. Of an interesting topic of tzaddikim gemurim. Of course, it's easy for us to talk about tzaddikim gemurim. Tzaddik Gomor means it's such the highest level of tzaddik, where he's so connected to Hashem, doesn't have any evil within him. I mean, he's totally eradicated even a tiny speck of evil. He's eradicated from his body. He's totally not subject to any negative, no negative thoughts or action done, not even in potential. And so this is a very high level, and that's this seemingly the understanding about Rav Adar bar Rava, because you have to understand Rav and Shmuel were also great people. They were holy of holies, but they considered Rav Adar bar Rava to be the tzaddik Gomor. Okay, so anyway, going back to where we're about to start, we're going to see a similar thing today as well about relying on miracles. So let's start now. We're going to go over the first part of, even though we already did Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan, I'm just going to read it inside. So Ilfa, it's just easier. We're on the top of page 21a, the top line. And if you're in the art scroll, it is 21a1, the first new paragraph. Ilfa of Rabbi Yochanan Garsi by Raisa. Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan was studying Torah. They were learning. The Chikalu Milsa Tuva, they were very struggling financially. Amr Nekem and Ezel V'Niyaba Iska, they said that let's go and do some type of a ASEC business. Let's invest. Let's get involved in some now that Iska, do some business, and we'll fulfill a pasuk. The pasuk says that Unakaim benafshin will fulfill with ourselves, with our soul, we'll fulfill this pasuk. Among you there should not be, but among you there should not be an evyain, a destitute person. So Azlu Waisvi Tuse Guda Re'iyah. So they went and they sat under Guda Re'iyah, a wall that was weak, that was dilapidated. They were eating. Also, two angels came. Shami Rabbi Yochanan, Damar Chad L'Chavri. Rabbi Yochanan heard that one of the angels told the other one, Nishte Alayo Haiguda, let's topple, let's throw down on them this wall. Viniktalinu, when we kill them. Because they're leaving the potential to have Olam Haba, the life of the next world. They're involving themselves in the Chayisha, the life of just a temporary life. That's literally
Rabbi,
what I mean. Temporary life.
Question.
Yes.
I thought angels were given tasks by Hashem, so how could they make decisions on their own?
That is a very good question. That is a very good question.
Like Shaden.
That's not what it says.
Well, what do you mean to say with that, Isaac?
If it said Shadim, I would agree with you. But this says angels.
So in other words, you both understand that like a demon has a permit to just do whatever they want, but an angel doesn't. I don't know that demons have the right either. Everything is from Hashem. Hashem has to give the okay. I don't know that would be a better answer. The only thing I could think of is that because this is under the laws of nature, that a wall that's dilapidated could fall, and they were irresponsible by not looking at the wall beforehand. Instead, they jumped into this idea of getting into business, and they just went there and didn't like look around to see if this is safe or not. So they have subjected themselves to the potential of nature, which would mean that the wall can fall upon them. And so this would be a scenario where the famous question, the philosophical question of can if everything is from Hashem and everything is preordained, why should I be careful for my safety? Nothing bad will happen to me. If I'm not supposed to die, I'm not going to die. Right? That's the famous question. Why should I be careful? If I'm not supposed to get sick, I'm not going to get sick. Let me walk outside without a coat in the cold. If I'm not meant to get sick, I'm not going to get sick. Let me do something dangerous, and if I'm not, it's not going to happen. If it's not meant, it's not going to happen. There's truth to that. If it's not meant, it's not going to happen. So why should we be so careful? Yes, Yehuda. We can't hear you. You're muted.
But we're not supposed to rely on miracles.
Right. So Yehuda's point is it's just a halacha that in truth it's not going to happen to you. You're not going to die. You're not going to get sick. But still, you're not allowed to do it because you're not supposed to rely on miracles. That's in other words, what you're saying is if someone wasn't meant to die, they're not going to die. Even if they stand right in front of someone shooting, they're not going to die but they're not allowed to do it because you're not allowed to rely on miracles. Well, so someone's shooting their gun, yeah, which is true. That's a very good answer, I think. But what would you like to say, you?
Which in my case is true because I had a brain aneurysm, and the doctors told my family to start making my final arrangements.
Wow.
They gave me a 2% chance of survival.
Right. Wow. Baruch Hashem. And we're all benefiting from it.
Right. So, and I was in a coma for a week.
Wow.
When I woke up, my entire right side was paralyzed and I couldn't speak.
Amazing. Incredible miracle. Yeah. Baruch Hashem. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, so the thing is that you're right. If Hashem doesn't want, he doesn't want. But there you had no choice. But the question really can be taken a step further. If you have the choice of putting on a coat or not putting on a coat, and it's cold out, and you choose not to put on the coat. So number one, you transgressed the command of protecting yourself. You transgressed it. But is it possible that you were not meant initially to catch a cold, but since you went out without a coat, you will catch a cold because you subjected yourself to nature. And by doing that, you fall into like a new category where you weren't supposed to get sick. But because you went out with a coat, without a coat, and nature is that people who go out without coats, they do catch a cold and get sick. So you sort of brought upon yourself something that wasn't initially meant for you, but you have the ability to do that. In other words, it creates like a question of in how we how we see hashgacha pratis, how we see Hashem's protection for us. To what extent does Hashem, protect us and plan every detail? And is there any way of changing some of those details based on our decisions and based on our foolish decisions if we do anything foolish? And here, that might be one of those scenarios where they were putting themselves in this dangerous thing. And here, so the laws of nature, in this case, it was angels speaking and having the right, which might be something along these lines that Ezra is bringing up. That how does it work then? So someone is shooting. So the angel of death seemingly has the right. Let's say someone does have the ability to do a foolish thing and put themselves in a place of danger, and then they die. And if that happens, does that mean that the angel of death has the right to kill them, even though they weren't meant to die, but because they put themselves into this natural, automatic death potential, then the angel of death sort of like has the right to kill them or not. This is getting into deep philosophical ideas about how Hashem runs the world and how we fall under the category of nature, how nature fits with Hashem's decisions on the world. But this definitely an interesting question, Ezra, and thanks for bringing it up. And it definitely deserves more thought about it. But I think we've definitely dug a little deeper. And thank you for encouraging us to dig a little deeper there. Yes, Moshe.
I don't want to go any deeper than you have to once you continue with the daf. But what about the Malach HaMuvitz? I mean, if what happened with 6 million Jews, there are certainly tzaddikim amongst those Jews that did not encounter nature. They were pulled into
again. They had no choice. They had no choice. So that's a whole different story. That's totally not within the scope of the discussion here. The discussion here is if a person puts themselves in danger, is it possible for them to change what was planned? Is it possible because they're doing something foolish, not when someone else does something crazy and evil or something like that, but when a person willingly puts themselves in a state of that's dangerous? Do we say even there that no, nothing can happen unless Hashem already planned it? Or does that sin, maybe that sin itself, by putting oneself in danger, that sin itself makes them subject to having a change in the way or what was planned, what was initially going to happen?
Can I ask you?
Yes.
What about a Jew during the Holocaust? He takes a gun and he kills a Nazi because he steps out of the out of the box. He decides he's going to kill a Nazi. Is that stepping into danger? I mean, sakuna, that's putting himself in danger?
I don't know, because in that situation he's already in danger anyway. So that he's doing a mitzvah there. So I don't know that would be a problem. I definitely encourage anyone that could have done that to do it. Yes, Mordechai. I think you were next, Mordechai. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's also that story in the Gemara about where the Malach HaMavos had told his assistant to kill Miriam the hairdresser, and by mistake he killed Miriam, the one who raises children, and he asked him how were you able to do it, and he said she was stoking the fire and burned herself, and that's how he was able to kill her.
Right, which leads to this idea a little about the potential for doing something dangerous could cause someone to have that potential. Yeah, seems like it's along these lines. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, Jeffrey, did you want to say something?
Yes, I just want to mention, it says particularly here Malachei Hashores. So they do sometimes have a charge, right? They have a job, right? We sing about Malachei Hashores, and they come to see if you should get a bracha or not on Friday night, right?
Right.
If they come to you home. So is a similar kind of idea. They went on inspection. Their job was inspection, and they went to see these scholars and see what they were doing. So it's not that they came up with the idea by themselves.
So you're comparing it to a case of giving a blessing. And you're saying if they have the right to give a blessing, they also have a right to topple a wall and kill someone.
Well, something like that.
No, a little, yeah.
No.
I think that's a little, it might be pulling it a little too far. I don't know. I think that there's a
But
difference.
I didn't know why it says Malachi Shores as opposed to just
Right.
Malachi.
Uh-huh.
Okay, but
That's an
all.
interesting question. I like that question, Jeffrey. That's a good question. Is there a difference in the malach? I mean, we know there are 10 levels of angels, different types of Ifanim, Chaysa Kodesh, and so which are all of them called Malachi Ashares, or only the certain ones called Malachi Ashares? I'm sure it talks about it in Chassidus. Maybe Betzalel or David might have something to tell us about Malachi Hashares. Maybe certain, I don't know if Betzalel is.
I think in the
here.
first sefer of Torah anthology of Me'am Lo'ez, there's a whole section on angels, and he goes on to all the different details and all the different levels. And there's Seraphim and Fanei Kodesh and all the different levels, and he talks about it there. I don't know it. I didn't prepare for the class, but it's there in the Torah anthology.
Okay, we'll have to take a look. If you have that Torah anthology? Does that mean the Me'am Lo'ez? I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which one? Which volume? On what?
The volume 1.
On Gracious? Gracious.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. All right, maybe we'll have to take a look there. You mean because in the second day when the angels were created, so it goes into it there probably.
Right.
Probably on day 2.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good source. Okay, now we got a little source, so that we'll have to take a look, Jeffrey.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Over there. Yes, Moshe, sure.
Can you transcend nature by being very learned, someone who's a Talmud Chacham, who's on a very high madrega, and also be pious and transcend nature, to be able to transcend nature by being a pious Jew and being one who's very learned? Are there ways of transcending nature by both ways? The pious Jew and the Jew who's very learned.
What about Maga?
Yeah, I don't know if either of them. I think only a tzaddik gomor might be able to. You know what I mean? I think it's only like someone who's a tzaddik gomor. I don't think the scholar has that ability, and I don't think even a regular pious person would have that. I think it has to be what's called a tzaddik gomor, which is a very extreme type of person who's a tzaddik, a pious person, not a regular pious person. That's my understanding. Now, so another thought about this is that you could say maybe that there's some level in between where it's not that a person is now not subject to having whatever Hashem ordains for them, and now they can sort of like they're not under Hashem's jurisdiction almost, chas v'shalom, to say such a thing. But maybe it's depending on what a person does, that's the decision of how long they're going to live. So a person has free choice, and if they make a very foolish decision of jumping off the Empire State Building, and so then what Hashem ordained for them that they should live till 100, and now they jumped off the Empire State Building at the age of 50. What ends up happening is Hashem is deciding that they deserve death here, and when Hashem is deciding they deserve death, it's not that, in other words, it's not that they now fall under the category of nature. It's that Hashem's decision is that they've made the choice that causes Hashem to make a sort of like a verdict that they deserve death. And according to that, you could maybe say the same thing like here, where it's like the angels have to make the decision of are we meant to kill these people because they're sitting under this, they've uh, they've sinned by by being irresponsible and sitting under a wall. They deserve death. And on this, the other angel says, no, but they also, that this one has they're deserving of death, not only because they sat under something dangerous, they're also leaving Chaye Olam and doing Chaye Shah. They're leaving what's long-term life, and they're sinning in a certain sense, at least according to the way one angel was thinking. This is considered a deserving of the death penalty. And so this is a case where we're supposed to be toppling the wall. And the other angel said, no, it's not, because there is one who is meant to, it's not his time. And even though maybe they might have done something wrong, but this is not, in other words, even after he did this thing wrong, it's not really the time yet for this person to die. In other words, it's they're dealing with the judgment that Hashem has already sort of like set in place, that this is the judgment for that person, that's a judgment for this type of person, and now they just have to put the facts together and connect the dots. Is this person subject to, are these people the ones that Hashem wants to be for us to kill? Something along those lines. So anyway, it definitely deserves more thought. That's just a little thought over here, but we'll have to look into it more further. So let's continue. So the Gemara here says that these people are manichin chayesh niktelinu. We should throw the wall on them and kill them. They're manichin chaye olam haba, and they're oisik and chaye shah. They're doing some type of a sin, which is a very interesting claim. This itself is also a very interesting line. They're forsaking the Torah in order to make money, but they didn't have money to live. So why is this wrong? How is this a reason that they deserve that the wall should fall upon them, if part of a mitzvah of in life is you have to protect yourself and support yourself and support your family. And so what was the other option? That they should stay and endanger themselves? But and to what extent are they obligated to endanger themselves? Like Rabbi Yochanan, in the end, he says, well, I'm going to be fulfilling, he says this line, I'm going to be fulfilling the verse that the poor, the destitute will never cease from the midst of the land. So was it only an issue of being poor and not, maybe it's a potential of death, be poor, but maybe he'll also die from hunger. And in that case, maybe this is a mitzvah to maybe, you would think it's a mitzvah to leave the learning and go and support your family. Like, is this considered wrong? So this is also a very surprising line, especially because we have a Gemara in Brachas that we all learned together, many of us learned, that mentions over there the famous argument of should a person v'asafta diganecha, is a person meant to go to work, gather their grain? What's going to happen if they go gather their grain? What's going to happen to the Torah? Where's the Torah? And so many chose that. So there were those that chose and followed Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, that you should go study Torah, and Hashem will provide. And v'lo also biyadam, the Gemara says, and they weren't successful. They ended up having to. They had no food. They ran out of food. They had no choice but to go and leave their learning. And then others were Hanig ben Minig Derech Eretz. They went to work, and they were able to sustain themselves and live a normal life. And they also probably learned that as a part-time. They also probably set times to learn, but they went to work. So what does the Gemara mean here? that, and what does it mean that they sin? They're sinning because they're manichin chayolam and Isaac and Chayisha. Yes, David.
He has here in the Steinsaltz from Rabbi Yaakov Emden. He says this whole idea of knocking this wall upon them. Some commentaries explain this story in light of the tradition that Satan brings charges against a person specifically in his hour of danger. After Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan put aside their Torah studies, the angels waited until the two men entered a dangerous place before considering what should be done with them.
Right. It doesn't exactly answer our question fully, but it does add a little. It does add something that that they're entering a place of danger, which we basically said. I mean, that was the whole topic of our conversation, is that they did something wrong. They should have looked and made sure that it's not dangerous. That was a mistake on their part. This is
The
a
question
dangerous
is,
place.
are these negative angels or positive angels just hanging around with nothing to do, no time on their hands and nothing to do?
Well, Ezra's question is very strong. Like, do they really have the choice? Even if they do have free time, is it really up to them? That's a powerful question. But yes, good point of it. Like, whether they have free time, they're like not sure what to do with it. But anyway, okay, so let's just finish off over here. So and try to do a little new stuff. So it says that they discuss with each other. The one angel told the other one, let's topple the wall on them and kill them, because they're forsaking the life of the Olam Haba, the world to come, and they're busy with the Chayisha, the temporary life. So Amalei Idach, the other angel answered him back, Shavtinu, leave them. There's one that's going to become famous, and we should Tamalei Shaita is going to become great, and it's not his time yet. Rashi adds, it's not his time yet to die. So Rabbi Yochanan Shama, Ilfa Lo Shama. Rabbi Yochanan heard this discussion. Ilfa didn't hear the discussion. He didn't hear this at all. So Amalei Rabbi Yochanan Ilfa Shama Marmidi. Did you hear anything? Amalei Lai. So Ilfa said, no, I didn't hear anything. Well, what do you mean? I didn't hear. You heard some noises? What? So Amar Rabbi Yochanan said to himself, obviously, I mean, the Shami Ana, since I heard, Vilvolei Shaman, and Ilfa didn't hear, it must be that it's meant that for me, I'm going to become great. And obviously, this is wrong for me to be here. I have some other calling. So obviously, it's learning, and they're upset, which is interesting. That why did Rabbi Yochanan feel that it's only because Kaimale Shaita, only because he's going to become great, that he should stop doing this? Isn't it enough to the fact that the angel said they're forsaking my Torah and Olam Haba, the world to come, and they're busy with temporary law? Shouldn't that be temporary life? Shouldn't that be enough of a reason to not go further? But the only reason he stopped, it seems, because Kaimali Shaita, because he says, well, I'm supposed to there's going to be a great hour for me. In other words, there's going to be a great moment. I'm going to become I'm going to get a position. So that because of that, he said, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop what I'm planning on doing, going to business. I'm going to go back to learn. So that's an interesting thing that he's basing it on. Since I heard, in other words, you would think that he should tell Ilfa, I just heard from the angels that this is not the appropriate thing for us to do. We're supposed to be, Hashem wants us to be learning. We're not allowed to be doing this way, but he doesn't see that from the angels. The only thing he saw from the angels is this practical fact that he's going to become, have a position. He's going to become great, and it's not his time to die. So wouldn't you think he would want to protect Ilfa? if this was wrong? The only thought that
Unless he thinks that because he's the only one, because he heard it, it was only meant for him.
But still, if this is wrong al pi halacha,
And he
and
can't
this is
reveal.
not the appropriate thing, wouldn't this be? In other words, if this was like a wake up call, you're not allowed to do this. You would think that he would. So I hear what you're saying. Like it was meant for him, but I think you have
But
to add
my question, I have another question, Rabbi. If you hear something that affects somebody else, are you required to tell that individual?
I mean, I would think there's lefnei iver loisitin michshol. You shouldn't put a stumbling block before your friend, depending on to what extent. If you have a dream, I don't know if you're obligated to go and you and I have dreams. I don't know if we have to go and tell someone. But if it's some type of a angels talking, I mean, I don't know. I would think that would be if if this is a sin, it's a sin. Here it's if you're talking about if it's not appropriate. So the only thought that comes to my mind is it's not up to angels to decide or to tell us what's a sin. This is dependent on the verdict of Bezdin, of below on earth. In other words, so they obviously they felt that what they're doing is not wrong, and they weren't going to listen to angels if angels say this is inappropriate, because you don't follow angels, you follow what the rabbinic verdict is, and their verdict is that they're supposed to go into business. The only thing is, in his scenario, if he knows that he's expected to get a position, then he felt, now for my scenario, I could not be doing this because I'm not going to fall into poverty, because my time is I'm meant to become big. I'm going to have a job soon. So he felt maybe this was a more of a revelation of what the future is going to be rather than a halachic decision. That's what it must be, because the Torah is lei bashamayim. You don't get a verdict from the angels. The angels have no right to make a verdict. They can't tell us what the halach is, but they can tell you what's going to happen. You can find out from them what's going to happen. And Rabbi Yochanan's only question was, is it going to be me who's going to be the Rosh Hashiva soon? Or is it going to be Ilfa who's going to become the Rosh Hashiva? And if it's me, then I have no right. Then it falls into a new category. Now, for that scenario, I'm not supposed to go into business because I'm going to get a job in teaching Torah. For me, I won't need that. I don't need to go into business. But if it was, so that was his whole thing. That's what it seems like. Shema mino l'didi kaimeli shaito. That for me, there's going to be this time that I'm going to become great and I'm going to become the Rosh Hashiva. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan, so Rabbi Yochanan told Ilfa, Adar, I'm going to return, and I will fulfill in myself, in my soul. It says the poor will never cease from the midst of the land. So, he's basically saying, I mean, I'm going to live through poverty now. I'm going to soon, I will become great, but I'm going to live through poverty. And the pasuk does say that there are going to be poor people, and I will be one of them. I'm changing my mind. I'm going back.
It's a bit of a joke too, because first they quoted the other pasuk that said there's always, right? I mean, it's a little bit lighthearted, I would say, because what it's showing you is when we're studying, we get certain inspirations. And sometimes we focus on one place, sometimes we focus on a different place. And so if I switch my focus, then I'm going to say to myself, no, there's also a pasuk that says you can do this. So this is explained as the angels are describing it, but in a sense, he is making his own decision. He heard something, and maybe what he heard was he realized, oh, there's another pasuk also, and I have a chance to fill that as much as the other one. And my companion doesn't realize that. So I have a right to go and decide without saying anything to him. But he told him the pasuk.
Right. So it's a good point that Jeffrey's making over here about the fact that seemingly, he knew the pasuk before as well. He knew this pasuk, and so what exactly? What's he doing by bringing another pasuk? Like, is this the correct way to do it, or is that like what? How do they rely on the other pasuk before, and all of a sudden now is this pasuk? They knew this pasuk, but the understanding is that Rabbi Yochanan was basically telling Ilfa. This is Amar Shah mentions this idea that what he was saying is, I have a new understanding that this pasuk is basically saying that a person who's learning Torah is allowed to be poor, and they don't have the other obligation of
Right.
of of fulfilling that other pasuk. In other words, that I feel I'm convinced that that this is acceptable. Initially he felt the other pasuk was the overriding factor, because it doesn't show any obligation. But what he was saying is it's going to be fulfilled in me, this pasuk, the other pasuk. Not
Mhm.
that not that it doesn't say an obligation, but that I'm allowed to. I have the
Exactly.
right to do that. That's what it seems like. But anyway, we're gonna have to stop here. It's 11:04. Zygos to everyone. Have a wonderful
Thank
day.
you, Rabbi. You too. I understand that you have recorded every session, so I was going to try to find out how to go back because I started late, so how I could go back. And